I am with Kadesh. Hi, Kadesh.
I,
And yeah, I've met Kadesh 6 years ago now in an esoteric school. I think it was 2019. And we just bumped into each other a few months ago, not even, less than a month ago, in Banyan, Thailand, aka Tantra Island. And one thing leading to another, I have received, yeah, probably the most meaningful Tantra massage, Yoni massage in my life. And in that context, yeah, receive it. And yeah, in that context, I realized it just took me in a even deeper reflection around pleasure and how meaningful pleasure can be. And so I wanted to have a conversation with you, Kadesh, around how meaningful pleasure can be, the relationship that specifically women have to pleasure. And yeah, since you have so much experience, I'm just excited about how this conversation will go. So I'd love to maybe, yeah, for you to start by introducing yourself.
so I was also bumping into you almost a month ago. Yeah. And yes, we went into a session, um, Yoni Massage session. It's the main field I'm working for the last 25 years, and starting from learning a bit before that, Tantra and bioenergetic healing and massage therapy, and then somatic psychotherapy. So that's where I'm coming from to this conversation as well. And after our session, also, I remember your sharings, and I thought that could be so much valuable to so many, actually. And therefore, I thought this is a great idea to have this call together and to talk because I'm convinced that some people get value from listening to it.
Do you remember what about what I shared? Because I was clearly in a whole other state after this session. So I don't remember very clearly. Do you remember what I shared that made you kind of have this spark of, okay, this can be really valuable to share on for a wider audience?
I don't know how much to share, but before the session or in the beginning, we also had a conversation.
Mhm.
And I remember that conversation went in a way that at some point there was a resistance that you felt,
Yeah.
like a trigger was activated. And the conversation progressed, and you were open to hear another perspective, just like intellectually. And then you were open to try, like to still go on with the process with into the massage. And then afterwards, the excitement of your realization I saw directly connected. And I would say the topic of the trigger and of the realization was around the integration of the 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 parts like masculine and feminine, like how or what is it? Like a deeper realization of it. Also, it was quite a while ago, so I don't remember exactly how you said it, but I remember you said it and I told you, yes, this, what you just said, and uh, yeah, memory gets vague.
Yeah, yeah, and I think okay, it's helping me also clarify what exactly I'd like to talk about, and it can help to
Mhm,
give a little bit of details around the session. Um, I was in a place where I had a series of experiences that had revealed some of my shadows, specifically in relationship to men. And I was angry, I was disappointed. I had experienced what for me had been betrayal on some levels. And it was fresh. It was maybe the day before our session. So it wasn't
mhm,
necessarily something that I wanted to work on when we had planned the session. And then
mm,
these events happened. And so when we met, I was in a place, when we met for the session, I was in a place where I was quite activated, quite angry, um, and resentful at men
mm,
in general. And specifically in the story that men do not care about my pleasure. Men
mm,
do not take the time and don't are not interested in my pleasure, and maybe even deeper in myself and my power and in my ability to express myself. And so it was, of course, enmeshed, since you're a man and we're going to work on
mhm,
and explore my body, my pleasure. And so we were getting in these conversations where it was a fine line for me to keep this trust, this faith in you as a practitioner and the process, and almost, yeah, see my projections and hold them on a tight leash so that I don't throw them all at you.
mhm,
And I think this is why um, it, it helped me to have a deeper understanding of how can we turn pleasure, just pleasure, so to say, into meaningful pleasure.
mhm,
And for me, this makes all the difference in the world. Can we move the conversation from feeling better in your body, having, for women, having like multiple orgasms and being like liberated and free in your body, to how can I work with pleasure with intention in service of a deeper liberation, an embodied liberation, a liberation of my soul, a liberation that allows me to remember who I am and to remember the love that I am, the presence that I am. How do we work with pleasure in service of that and not necessarily as an end goal? For me, this session was such a practical, tangible proof of how important this is.
mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, pleasure is definitely a potential outcome of such type of session. I
yeah, and
mean,
it's
not
not.
just potential. It's usually what comes up, and it's even applied. It's very. The, it reminds me something that in the last few days I've seen several times showing up and with people around me. There are many therapists that do types of de-armoring, for example, and they go into the tension and make pressure there, basically in order to release the tension by bringing awareness, and then the person relax and so on. But the mistake that many do is that they overly focus on the awareness and the need to release by pressing it very hard, that it passes the fine line that defines where pleasure ends and it starts to be pain, not necessarily very painful, but towards that direction. So actually, not going harder and staying on that line, on the most pleasure possible, but before passing the line, that is the most potent place to stay. Like literally, this is the most accelerated transformation of the part that is pressed, like the release of the stagnation of the life force flow.
Mm.
And therefore, pleasure, in a way, is even the indicator. We can uh, hold on to pleasure as well and focus on it, but then we narrow it also to very specific line and not letting it just spread, which might feel less intense or less of a peak, but actually it enables more energy to move, and eventually the peak would be in another category of height. So if there is enough patience, patience is very important because it might take time.
Yes. And so I'm hearing that you're going
Mhm,
into almost the elements of that are needed to work with pleasure for the sake of transformation. So you mentioned um, non-attachment, yeah, not grasping onto the
mhm,
pleasure to narrow it. You mentioned
mhm,
patience, and
mhm.
I would love to kind of just go back a step and have your take on what is meaningful pleasure. Why would we work with pleasure in service to liberation, in service to transformation?
Um, Two things. One, when you say meaningful, is possible like whatever meaning we give to something is the meaning of it. So there is the subjective aspect.
Yeah.
Um, so maybe I'll suggest functional pleasure um, that have a function for for supporting the body to heal or to release energetic stagnations, trauma, that aspect. Um, in that way, the pleasure is just the most efficient strategy to deepen because instinctively, if a certain sensation gets to a place that it touches the association of pain in the interpretation of it as input to the system. So in front of pain, category of pain, we need, like there is a place that don't want pain. Always there will be a place that don't want pain. Pleasure, of course, there are also sides that would resist pleasure, but they have a less grounded base. They are usually based on patterns that were adopted later in life and they are not biologically wired in the brain, like from the most primal survival place. We avoid pain, we are drawn to pleasure. So staying in front of the line that defines the end of pleasure, staying in pleasure helps the body in its very early stages of uh, of consciousness, of intelligence, very primal aspects, to say yes to it and to surrender, to relax more into it. And as more the body relaxes, the more it can conduct the life force and less supporting stagnation. So again, to that mistake that many do, that they press on the pain, they can release a lot of energy, but the seed, the center of it, they actually contract it even more. And then it's even harder to release it. And it can come up in different pathways of symptoms. Um, and staying on that edge before the line, it actually helps to even melt the seed, to let it evaporate, how to say, or just become part of the flow. And because pleasure is instinctively a positive experience, so it is adopted into the system, and it's just technically easier for the brain to integrate it as part
Mhm.
of the body, as part of the vehicle for this consciousness.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that you reframe this into from meaningful pleasure to functional pleasure. And so having more of an
Mhm.
objective way of seeing that pleasure can be used as a tool for embodied liberation. It can be used as a compass for the system to orient towards what is what is more alive, what is more healthy, what is more in flow, versus working with pain is going to have the space of something's wrong, something's off. And
Mhm.
yet, this is kind of a by question. What what would be your take on this idea that we need to be completely equanimous and pleasure and pain are, two sides of the same coin, and we need to have the same, almost like this kind of spiritual principle that we need to have the same, view and not grasp to pleasure and be averse to pain.
Yeah, that's so you're coming back to what you've mentioned, no attachment, or like what I've mentioned, not holding on to that pleasure and just observe it. But of course, it's pleasurable. So it's like I enjoy the waves of it passing by, but I'm not grabbing it fully. And that actually allows it even to stay more and to grow beyond the size of my graspability, how to say. If I grasp it, I limit it to the size I can grasp. And if I just observe it, yeah, it can grow. And of course, with experience, I've learned also to easily trust life, that life wants to be alive, vital. And pleasure is just one of the symptoms of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so to
Yeah,
narrow, go ahead.
yeah, not only a symptom, it's a vector that life aims to evolve to. Like it's natural, it's not me personally want, and maybe I should be ascending the physical realm or detaching. Um, it's to integrate it, but it just even from purely how to say pleasure focused perspective, it's smarter strategy not to hold on to pleasure because eventually there will be more of it.
Yes. Uh, Letting pleasure flow without holding on to it actually
Mhm.
amplifies pleasure.
Yeah, of course, also not to resist, of course.
And So what is the link with transformation? Why are we using functional pleasure as a tool for evolution, for growth?
Why? Um, when you say why are we using it, you mean generally humans? Like,
Humans, us as
or
practitioners,
as practitioners? Okay.
yeah,
Um, because it dismantles a deep layer of resistance that if it would be too intense that it's on the level of pain, then it would automatically resist. Yet, if it is not intense enough that the pleasure is maybe little or even just not significant, the sensation, the feeling, then also the amount of awareness it can bring there is too small. So it's basically maximum awareness, but without triggering a resistant pattern. And pleasure is just where it sits, that ultimate ratio.
So I remember you saying to me something like that in the during the session or after the session, that transformation comes with bringing maximum awareness to
Mhm.
whatever process is happening in the body or in this mix of body, psyche, whatever the process is, maximum awareness with as least resistance as possible, with maximum allowance, let's say.
Mhm.
And pleasure is a vehicle for that.
Mhm. Mhm.
And you also use the term of pleasure frequency.
Pleasure, yeah, I used it.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm trying to remember in what context. Um, but perhaps you mean maybe the sexual aspect?
There was yeah, it's this session, such a haze, such a beautiful, beautiful haze. That there was something around at some point it really felt like we were in a whole other realm where there was a lot of presence and a lot of, yeah, just so much focus on what is happening right here, right now. And for me, it felt like insight after insight after insight. Like everything was getting so clear on the issues that I had brought. And I think I had shared that with you between two orgasms or something. And you said something like, welcome to the pleasure frequency. And it felt like almost being
Mhm.
on a whole different channel.
Okay.
That's why it stuck with me.
Sometimes, okay. Um, there is a quality in the body tissue that, or specifically the muscles, is the easiest to represent it. When they are relaxed, they are conductive more than when they are contracted. But it can be also fully relaxed, which is in a way numb. And again, it's the idea, it's the maximum awareness with maximum relaxation of the tissue, is possible to say. Then it can conduct the most amount of energy. And the idea is to support your relaxation in a session, is support you to relax as much as possible. So the um, the currents, the ecstatic currents, can move through those currents that are so strong that they need another type of state of mind than what we are used to now, for example. It's like going fully into whatever, into the sensation. In that case, into the body, and in that sense, enables the merging with the body, like the union of soul and body in that sense.
Yeah, it
And
sounds like you're
mhm,
referring to, ordinary consciousness, and a lot of people who come to me or come to receive tantric body work. I know a big chunk of them have gone through talk therapy. Yeah, and there's a uh, I hear a lot of, yeah, I've done 10 years of therapy, 20 years of therapy. I know all of my patterns. I can see clearly, and yet some things just don't change because some deeper change, evolution, transformation needs to go through the body. Understanding the issues are not enough. You really need to move the energy that is in the body. And it sounds like you're referring to that.
yeah, it's connected. The body, the mind is not just the brain. The whole body is like how to say the antenna for the mind,
Yeah.
and information is stored also in tissues, in every tissue, not just nerve tissue, and every water in every cell. And the releasing of tension, like when a tension is releasing, this is interpreted basically as a good sensation, as a positive feeling, as a pleasure, basically.
Mhm.
And when I can support also the mind, also the body, like the mind, I mean the thinking process, also through talking, through perhaps suggesting what might support, or um, or the feeling that is relevant to be felt, like the frequency in a way, but also the relaxation of the body without dissociating, without letting awareness fade, but actually in a way that enhances the presence of awareness. Then the transformation can happen, and the more intense the stagnation, I mean, every stagnation is basically same. It's like a trauma. It's a tension that is stuck in the body. And and if it is repetitive, it can be post-traumatic pattern, perhaps to say, which the person recreates the same tension as as a strategy that not always so efficient, usually not, but generally as a strategy to control reality in some way, and their own reality, of course. Um, but patterns that are stubborn or intense, they're usually an outcome of a very strong experience. The stronger the experience is imprinted in the memory, and the strength of it is often um, is like as an emotion, as intense emotion. The strongest it is, the the deeper it gets stuck, how to say. Also, it relates to stage of development, of course, but as little ones, we just experience everything more intensely. And every feeling, every emotion is actually stored as a physical sensation as well. That's what supports the intensity of it, is that it is wired together with a physical sensation as a definition of the body, like literally, physically, how to say, in the mind of the person, of course. So when the body relaxes to a level that it can lose the sense of where it begins and where it ends, lose the sense of space, of direction, but then again can stay present. If the intensity of the presence uh, exceed the intensity of the traumatic event, then it can just wash away that stagnation. So again, pleasure enables going deeper and deeper into the intensity because there is no resistance. It's like, it's so good, yes, please more. Pain is, maybe I can push it more. It's not fully giving itself to way more when it's very intense. But pleasure, yes.
Yeah, I'm having this image of as if our body was this like riverbed, and these blockages, traumas were these boulders, and the bigger the boulder, the more you're gonna need the power of the river to move it through
Mhm.
somehow. And so the in my experience, the stages of pleasure are start with relaxation, finding some level of safety and ease in the body, and then the next level is flow. So being able to move, to express breath, sound, movement, so
Mhm.
that there's some stuff moving. And then
Mhm.
there are various stages of pleasure that kind of let you know that you're in the right direction, that meaning there's more and more acceptance, there's more and more opening, there's more and more relaxation. But it sounds like you're speaking to these two first stages that require, in order for something to be unblocked in the body, which is coming from mental, emotional distress that we might have had in an early age or due to an incident. We need that power, like the flow of the
Mhm.
river, that power to be able to move through it, to be able to liberate it.
Yes, in talk therapy, if I just understand, but I don't experience it, then actually I would say it can even enhance the experience of guilt and self-depression. Like, oh, I know I should not do that, but I still do it. Like this pattern of thinking. Um, And and part of the thing is also to allow oneself to fully feel and triggering the body into feeling more can be supportive.
Yeah. And I think, it makes me also think of this, even this word transformation, right? It's the
Mhm.
change of form that's really,
Mhm.
it really needs to have it has a physical implication. It really
Yeah.
needs to go through the body. Mm, yeah. And one thing that's still like rewiring, even before we're actually working with the body, one thing that really stuck with me in our session is that we had a pre-talk that was,
Yeah.
I think, around 2 hours long. It took us 2 hours of discussion to really clarify the intention for the session.
Mhm.
And so, yes, we're meeting the body. Yes, we're, meeting blockages and amplifying my capacity for pleasure, but for what? And we took 2 hours to discuss this for what. And I'd love to hear yeah, what, how is it for you to work with intention? What is the role of intentionality when we explore our bodies and we explore pleasure?
Um, when touch starts, the mind, the verbal mind, quite start to melt. It's not so functional anymore. It's actually just standing in the way most of the time. But to make sure that whatever flow, it will be in alignment with the conscious part, with the most self-delusional conscious part, the one who think it drives the ship, but is actually just um, one window in it, how to say. Um, is uh, I think is very important because without clear consent and clear verbal definition of you in that case, verbal definition of what is your will, what is your purpose, then in any case, even just for myself, I will not necessarily be able to show it back to you because memory can rearrange itself. And also for me, to be sure I have no mistakes in like assuming something or misreading something. And I make sure it's before any touch because then the focus on clarity can be maximal. And once it's fully clear, then only then I start with touch that have presence, like that feels good, how to say, only then. So, um, yeah, I mean, in the beginning of my path, I have done mistakes, and that's what I learned, that it's very important for integrating the mind that afterwards it will not think something else, is to reach the final clarity of what exactly is the intention. And then also knowing when the intensity of pleasure rise up.
You froze
Um,
just now. Can you repeat that last
oh,
sentence?
okay.
These
Yes.
last words.
Yes. So when the intensity of the pleasure in the session start to rise up, then it's easy to start to want some other things that perhaps in advance were defined in a boundary. It's like, maybe that exactly is, if it's not clarified in advance, it's very easy to fall there. And, and eventually, all that energy can be not necessarily even bringing a positive experience.
Yeah.
Because how things also can be interpreted retrospectively. Like there is too much vagueness.
Yes.
And, and in that sense, having clarity, I know into what to mold myself to, like into what form. It's
Yeah. So
clear, yeah.
there are two, from what I'm hearing, there are two different ways to see this importance of working with intention when we work with pleasure. And one
Hmm.
is, as a practitioner, we want to have a really, really clear frame of what is it we're doing, who's doing what to whom, for what purpose, and to have a clear idea of what the boundaries of the receiver and the practitioner are, so that once we enter the mind altering, mind blowing pleasure
Yes.
realm, we know what frame we're in. That's that's one thing,
Mhm.
and it helped me and it helped us, I feel, a lot in this session that was like
Mhm.
quite explosive to have a clear boundary of this is what we're doing and not something
Mhm.
else. Um, and the other part of intention, working with intention, and for me, which was extremely meaningful, is really going through what is my process? Why do I want a yoni massage? What is the
Mhm.
context? What is my relationship to pleasure at the moment? What are the meanings that I associate with my pleasure? And in this case, it was my relationship with men that I wanted to find some healing in that. And we went really, really far into discussions around why do I even want this? And where's my process at the moment? And where is my wish in my personal healing process? And for me, this was particularly meaningful because having that clear intention and being able to let it go somehow, I don't know if it's subconsciously or on in the back somewhere, it was working. And I really, I remember that so there were many orgasms, and between each orgasm, there was a wave of insight or a process developing itself around just that, around my relationship with men. I could move through feelings, fears of being abandoned by you or distrusting you. And it felt like
Mhm.
this process moving forward because I had set such a strong intention that this is what I want to face, this is what I want to meet.
Yeah.
Is this something that's common in your sessions? Is this something that you're familiar with?
Yeah. Emotions come up as more the intensity rise up. Any emotion can come up, and naturally, yeah, it can be intense stuff, and it can change totally to different direction. It's a process
Mm,
because eventually the emotion is literally is like the energy, it's the life force that moves, like it is the emotion. When we allow ourselves to feel what is, we actually just allowing life force to flow. When we avoid feeling what is, we actively create a stagnation. Uh, Stagnation can be either through pain, but a deeper one is numbing. And avoiding feeling is usually numbing, like repression. Um, and and again, that brings to pleasure, where it is numbing would feel a reason to become um, sensational. I mean, in the sense that uh, being sensible, being able to sense, be sensed, like the numb area. If there is pleasure, maybe it's worth to be not numb
mm,
and
yeah,
to awaken. Um, so the focus, mm, yeah, I'm trying to go back to what you just asked.
yeah,
So emotions come up. It can be sadness, like grief. It can be rage. It's usually go to the primal parts. It can be freeze, and in a way, when it touched the deepest base, there comes the orgasm. And using also orgasm as a transformative force, this is particularly powerful, way more than pleasure, because in orgasmic movement, it's usually the exact fine-tuning on the line, the maximum intensity, minimum pain, but it's almost unbearable the amount of pleasure for that moment. And what happens, it's just the whole body after contracting fully release. And when it is built up, releasing smaller stagnations in the body, preparing the body to be more conductive. So the orgasm that can happen is just way stronger than without that, and as well, much more transformative. But on the way there, any emotion can come up and is important that it will come up. It's very important. It's just like the orgasm is not even the goal because it can be just another wave of transformation. It doesn't mean it's the end of all evolution, how to say. And there can be more emotions. It's just um, it just reveals new realms each time. But emotion is just part of it. It's the same. Every emotion and orgasm, I would say, they are the same energy, just in different frequencies.
Every emotion are the same energy in different frequencies.
Yeah, and orgasm is one of the emotions as well.
Okay, so you would call an orgasm an emotion.
Yeah,
Interesting. Yeah, if you look at emotions in the broader sense, meaning just something that wants to move, energy in motion, then yeah, an orgasm is
yes,
an emotion. Mm. As something
yeah,
that has a wave, absolutely. Mm.
yeah. And it's also exactly the same energy. It just in the frequency that is most impacting the conductivity of the body.
Yeah, it makes me think when you were saying, the intention, the person who sets the intention is the kind of the delusional part that thinks that we have control. Um, it,
Mhm.
it, that's how it feels like this setting an intention, setting a desire to have clarity or heal or transform in this particular direction, but then working with the body, we're working with pure life force. And so anything that will need to move will move. If if as a byproduct there are insights, and I feel like this is where intention for me helped me a lot, is having that clear intention allowed me to have insights um, on this particular theme. So that's amazing. And whatever wants to move will move, whether it's rage and there's no way of predicting that.
Without clear intention, then as better in a way the session would be, like the Yoni massage would be, the more powerful it will be, the more orgasmic it would be, there is higher chance that it will be not integratable, how to say, into the
Mm.
conscious part. It would be too overwhelming. It would be too freeing the mind, how to say, that the mind would be too scared to integrate it and therefore would need to reject the whole thing. The clear intention gives a container for integration that is already set in advance. So, however intense it would be, more precise the intention is, the more effective it would be. And precise, I mean also, yeah, going with you deeper, like psychoanalytically. Like this is part of the thing. The the somatic psychotherapy is in a way a combination of two tools. One is the talking and one is the touch. And the talking is from all the ways is the most direct to the conscious part. The touch from all ways is the one that bypasses the conscious part most easily and can communicate with another body, with another person, the most amount of information, but that bypasses the conscious. The talking is the least amount of information bypass the conscious, but there is something complementary between them, and and that kind of supports each other for that integration.
Mm. Yeah, that's really beautiful. And I think this is why the term meaningful pleasure comes to me so deeply, is it has to do with this integration that I've experienced pleasure, I've experienced these waves of orgasms, and now I'm able to also associate a meaning to it, to give it a meaning, to integrate it in my conscious mind and the way I see the world, the way I relate with people, beings. And yeah, for me, this is beautiful, kind of like the end goal, or the end, or the end of the process is integration, right? And I would love for you to speak about that. What is integration?
Before that, it's now I understand much better your meaning with meaningful pleasure. It's like, yeah, the clear intention enables to give meaning to the pleasure of the session. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I find this beautiful. Um, and what is integration? Um, I like to come from a post or neo-Jungian perception to it. Um, Basically, for that, we need to perceive ourselves in a way that soul is also part of the what I am, and in a way a central part as the ultimate observer on this body mind experience, and as soul that then potentially can be non-identified and non even associated with any aspect of this body and mind, which means characteristics, feelings, specific thoughts, and so on. It's just consciousness, just observer. Yet there is a process that um, consciousness becomes more cognizant, more aware in general. It crystallizes its understanding, its clarity about existence, how to say. Um, so living a life enables to learn more. We get like consciousness gets more data of experience, and from that it can know better. But living life as a man or as a woman, there is a difference in it, or living life as a whale or as human, there is a difference in that, or as an animal or something else, a fungi. It's also different expression, but um, in the near zone between man and woman, this is a very potent, how to say, potential integration for our well-being and interpersonal relations and just living this life better together. Uh, and basically, as Jung suggested, that we all have a shadow aspect, the aspect that we are unconscious of, whether it is near conscious, like repressed, or it is in the id, in the deeper unconscious, like biologically wired and just unfigured functions, or it's even further in the collective psyche and in like the super id, what I can just conclude of existence within the realm of human experience, but it's not in my reach. And these are degrees of aspects that we can integrate, like degrees of depth in the shadow aspect. The integration is actually an integration of a shadow piece, of something that I don't know as I. Um, thing maybe is not the right word to say thing. It's not something, it's some aspect
Mhm.
or someone that is a possible way to come to it as like different characters within oneself, um, but or aspects of consciousness. Um,
Yeah.
so to get to know different aspects within me enables me also to know it better in the world. But to know it better in me, especially those that it's not those I have repressed, it's those that are in the super id, especially those, I will never be able to reach them by myself. I need the interaction. I need to see, wow, this person, it's like a whole different universe. I just don't understand how someone can be like that. Oh, that's an opportunity to integrate an aspect in the super id. And this happens a lot between the sexes as well. Of course, there is another important dimension between good and evil, like in that sense. How can this person behave like this on the moral aspect? And the third, how to say, dimension there is a power, like the experience of power or incapability. It's like the three, but the first of them, the masculine and feminine aspect, is is I think just very relevant for all of us. Actually, all of them, but maybe more to our topic with pleasure and with sexuality and and to our conversation in the session. If it's okay that I'm saying it, because you mentioned it a bit. Um,
Yeah, I think there's so just to kind of recap
mhm,
what you were saying is that what integration is this process of
Mhm.
moving from a separated self, from this is me versus this is not me, towards
Mhm.
more and more, this is also me. This is also me. This is also so
Yeah, a
taking,
wholer self.
yeah, so taking more and more of these different aspects of life that we feel separated from and making it part of us to feel whole, to also remember the whole our wholeness.
Um, not making it part of us, but revealing it within us
Mm.
as it's already coded in a like holographically existing. It just we never shine the light on that face of the diamond, I would say.
Yes. Yeah, I love this reframing that it's actually not, we're not actively bringing it in. It's already in us and it's being revealed to us.
Yes. Yeah, and another person is an opportunity to see a reflection.
So what is so we're having a sense of what integration is and what is the link with working with the body, working with pleasure to get to that process of having this revelatory process of, oh, actually my identity or my sense of self is way wider, way vaster than I could imagine.
Um, yeah, for this person, really, the person needs to be open to not hold not hold strongly to its definition of identity, because like the the pride in a way is the main obstacle. Like would be the main like pride in a specific identity that disables integration of the polar stereotype to what one holds on to. And
Mhm.
humility, like life is humbling. So usually through negative experiences, how to say, is actually the best opportunities for integration when life is humbling, basically. Um, and um, it's possible also maybe to say that we can have hints to recognize, oh, there is a shadow aspect here. Like it's possible to divide the shadow into three categories in a whole different way, um, which also relates to the depth. And so it can be that someone behaves in a way that I really judge negatively, so bad, in my view. And that is usually one of two options. It's either I behave like that and I am trying to deny it from myself. This is the deeper layer. The less deep layer is where I would have liked somewhere to be like that, but I don't really allow myself. This is less deep shadow, usually. It's easier to find out. But
Mhm.
but this one is actually an invitation to the super id in a way. And the first one is more an invitation to the subconscious, the near, like the it's together. It's like because there is active repression there as well. Choice to be unaware. But there is a third way is if I fall in love in a way that is not realistic, in a way that is not aligned with what actually is. in a fantastic way, basically. Um, so it's what can be called the golden shadow. So I idolize the other, a specific quality, which is also an invitation to find that projection in me and to come to a wholer wholeness. And, and this is actually often excluded in I find in shadow work approaches is it's not just where I feel judgment, but also where I fall in love. It's both.
Yeah.
Um, so these can be hints. And first step of integration is mental. It must be. That's why the clarity of intention, like the conversation, because literally the meaning of the shadow is the place that is hidden from the light of awareness. It is necessarily something we are not aware of. We are
Mhm.
not aware of. It's not like I know my shadows. That would be an absurd claim
Mhm. Mhm.
because then there are not shadows anymore. Um, and there will be always more shadows, of course, because there are always more people we haven't met and we don't know they exist. And that within us there is that potential. Um, and after the mental integration, just like being aware of it is already shining light to that direction. So I can start to get sense of clarity, but sometimes there is mist, how to say, there is like a dense cloud there, like energy that need to move because it makes the cloud some emotions that are stuck. Not always, often though, it's so, but not always. Sometimes just mental integration is enough to integrate the shadow. They just, now I understand, and that's it. That can be enough. Because I never thought on that perspective. Oh, now it's integrated. Um, but some what more challenges our self-definition would often more be held with an emotional charge because we use that energy to keep the energetic form in a way to the frequency that is me. Because if I feel different, it's like, oh, I was not myself. That can be kind of like the excuse, which as well is not like, it doesn't really make sense. There is absurd in it. But the emotional part of integration, this, um, I would say, extremely supportive, like maybe the number one mental tool to bring into the emotional process is a certain degree of maturity that genuinely is willing to forgive. Because, I mean, forgive to um, whoever or whatever, if it's what, so the who can be God or whatever, um, is the responsible person or someone for me being a victim of sort of type, and also the readiness to see myself as a victim. Even if I fall in love with someone, I'm a victim of being not as worthy as that one I want to merge with or which I idolize. Um, and if I judge someone, so I'm a victim of the negative vibe that someone creates, or how to say, it's just like the victim narrative will always be there to justify myself morally, to still keep my pride not fully broken, to because otherwise, how can I live with myself? To keep my identity, basically.
Mhm.
So so the so therefore there needs to be the polar stereotype, the villain, and I need to be ready to forgive. And the best way, again, is to find within me that villain and to understand how I would do exactly the same thing. And and for myself, it's easier to forgive usually than if it's someone I don't know. And then it will be also easier to have compassion. Um, but on the process of releasing the emotional charge, um, that comes back to what we talked earlier about just connection into the body and feeling the energy flow and pleasure as a key role in that and so on. Any emotion that comes up is relevant, is is legit, and is actually even important for the puzzle piece. And life itself, it just either one trust in it or not. Of course, it helps to have faith in life. And then it goes all the way to the base, to like the Kundalini awakening, to the orgasmic explosion, to like the life as ecstatic current of experience and not any other specific emotion, just intensely pleasure.
Yeah, I think you said something earlier around the body being the antenna for the mind and
Mhm,
making the link here with shadow work, shifts of
mhm,
identity, and body work and pleasure.
mhm,
And so if the body is an antenna for the mind, all our sense of identity and all our past experience are engraved in our bodies and
mhm,
in a specific, and it makes it hold a specific posture, a specific structure that, yeah, that we're infusing ourselves with our sense of identity. And so when we work with the body and work with pleasure, again with that metaphor of this like unleashing the dam, opening the dam, having this huge current of ecstatic life force move through, we're also
mhm,
creating a certain suppleness for this
mhm,
moment, this intense moment of where we become malleable, where all of a sudden it's everything's not so sure anymore. There's you know, I've experienced in our sessions and outside of our sessions in the middle of pleasurable orgasmic experiences, the sense of oneness, a sense of oneness with life, with God, or being one with all that there is. And so there's this possibility to open the at least the space for doubt of, is that really true?
mhm,
Is that really who I am?
mhm, mhm,
And that allows for this opening to this genuine, not only theoretically, but also, oh, I can feel in my body how actually this identity is not all that there is. There's I am much more,
mhm,
and I can
mhm.
open to much more.
Yes. Yeah, it's possible to describe it in a way when the energy, when the Kundalini goes up beyond a certain level, the state of awareness starts to be literally what people call a psychedelic. Those who are comfortable in psychedelic experience, for example, would be easier for them to have faith in life because it's like, yeah, nothing is sure. Nothing is, I don't have a base for what is reality even. And the trust in existence, the faith, just it doesn't need to be defined. It's just that trust, that faith enables this exactly what brings it to a positive place. Because the other side of it would be fear, would be contraction, and that the intensification of defense mechanisms and in psychedelic state, like with plant medicine that goes there. So that would make it a bad journey, like a negative experience. But in sexuality, like in the orgasmic flow, it will just stop it.
Mm.
And, and yeah, it will limit the orgasmic potential. But if one is able to let everything one knows and think they are, just let it dissolve, annihilate, just like melt into the infinite ocean of consciousness. Like in this, it's, yeah, it can even go to this realm and it can even peak in realms of such and beyond. Uh, so, so yeah, it is a, I would say, depends on the maturity of the person's ability to shift between states of awareness that also they altered what is called those who are more psychedelic to integrate these aspects of the self. Um, and for sure, it enables much, much more. We expand their experience also with either to say awakening the Kundalini up to some degree or the orgasmic experience rising. Yeah, allows it to go to a whole other realm, which um, then can be integrated as well. Like pleasure makes it easier to integrate.
Yeah, and I think you said something around it's such an important word, it's being humbled by
Mm.
life, and which for me has a direct link with not knowing anything, right? This is something around for me. Humility has directly
Mhm.
to do with listening, with curiosity,
Mhm.
with the fact that
Yes.
I actually have no clue and I don't know. So I am going
Yeah.
to be in a listening, and I feel like the yeah, pleasure, the sense of allowing flow and allowing life force through the body, and ultimately various orgasms in their almost, but also emotions in their almost like in their autonomy of flow, right? I'm just observing it's happening on its own, and all I need to do is get out of the way and allow it, is in itself extremely humbling. So almost feels like God in motion, or yeah, nature doing its thing in front of my eyes, so to say.
I would suggest even orgasm is humbling.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we are shy. It's like if we really have a strong orgasm, we're shy usually. It's like it's vulnerable, we are exposed.
We're showing so much of ourselves through just this explosion, through our voice, through our bodies. There's this total level of surrender where it's
Yeah.
almost, I was no one for a minute there, you know? It's like, oh, I
Mhm.
back to being someone, and then the shyness might come. Yeah, the deep vulnerability of stepping into being no one for a moment.
Yeah, and it's vulnerable because also what we want most in that very moment is very clear. So we are very manipulatable, how to say, very easy for someone to decide for us if someone have reached that. So that's why the trust is very important. It's like trust in
Yes,
life, trust in love. And that's how we use also that state of awareness to generate that reality for ourselves. Because if we will be defensive and suspicious, we will actually encourage defensiveness or closeness, like being closed uh, from the other, because the other would not trust as well. And um, it's amazing exploration to go to these realms. Um, but the setting is very important. And part of it is as well the clarity. In a session, of course, of such type between
yeah,
partners is different.
it's definitely, it seems like we're circling back almost to intention, and this is why also the intention of the setting, especially with a practitioner, and the setting for one's personal process is so important, is because we're at a level of suggestibility in peaks of pleasure and orgasm that can go both ways and be completely in service to this revealing of the love that we are. And it can also, yeah, be quite destructive and also anchor things that we don't necessarily want to have anchored in our system.
Mhm,
I mean, this is also why this is a whole other subject, but this is why sexual abuse is also so traumatic, is that there's, yeah, it just goes really, really, really deep. But if we enter these states with the right intention, or with the intention that we're most aligned with, then the revelations that we have can be deeply, deeply, deeply anchored in our system, and therefore stay
mhm,
even after the experience. So it wasn't just a peak experience, a great memory. There's something that stays.
mhm. Yeah, yeah, and also the involvement of the body in it, the intensity of the sensation, it helps that integration for it to stay. Like the thing with integration also is that it stays.
Yeah, it's how do I weave this into my daily life? How does this stay with me and with my sense of identity or identity shift, or my suppleness in my identity,
Mhm.
um, even after the experience?
Yeah, and it's also an expression of the evolution of consciousness in a way that the more aspects we integrate, the more complex our perspective is, the more sophisticated, like cognitively complex. So, so we need to be able to grasp more, basically, yeah, more sophisticated idea, for example, or naturally, I would say a fourth person perspective to above that, which maybe it's a whole topic in itself to go into it, but um, it's expanding the default of dimensionality we are imagining, or as well like the way we define things to expand it as like to also fourth person perspective. And the integration is the same idea that refers to that. Um, maybe I'll mention about the fourth person perspective briefly because it gives a verbal tool that is very useful for that. And it's in a way very much Jung kind of was a big influence on enabling or bringing into academy the fourth person perspective on self. But it doesn't have necessarily just to be on subject, it can be on object as well. So on object, the quantum physics very much reflects that. It's like the distinguishment between a wave and a particle. A particle, you can just like say this, it. Like it comes from the idea of an atom of the individual, indivisible. Psychologically, the individual, it's like relative to a wave that it doesn't have exactly definition, and it's kind of mixed with everything, and every wave in existence somehow holographically is represented in every wave. And same a person, like the idea of individual, of the real me, that part that is the real me, like that idea, it's a little bit like a third person perspective on self, rather than seeing the self as what holographically integrates already every possible aspect that can be. And yes, there is that part that I'm more identified with, that I have more the habit of thinking I am, and also more like the habit correlates with the experience, of course, of being aware of that face and not the other face of the shape. Um, and consciousness is evolving to get the whole diamond, the whole shape with all its faces. So the self, in that sense, includes as well the all the way to the super id, all the way like the collective consciousness, what's beyond our grasp ability.
Yes.
Or
You're
the self is more like a wave than a particle. That's what I mean. It's like not an
yeah.
individual. It's a synthesis.
Yeah, and I love that you're opening to that direction. And I think we can conclude almost on that is that
Mhm.
we're speaking about individual bodies and individual pleasure and
Mhm.
self-process and transformation. And this is actually opening the to being beyond our individuality, to see ourselves as a wave or as part of a wave, and to hold all these perspectives, especially today when there's so many um, polarized conversation and extremely passionate for and against and generating so much violence
Yeah.
to make that bridge between we're not just talking about orgasm, we're not just talking about pleasure in a body, we're talking about expansion of consciousness that allow us to
Mhm.
have the nuance and the and hold nuance and complexity to have greater compassion and kindness and tackle collective issues much, much differently.
Yeah, I would say orgasm is one of the most, if not the most, natural way for consciousness to expand into ecstasy beyond the separated self, beyond the definable identity, into the oneness, into life itself, like through experiencing the ecstatic current of life. I'm just life in that moment. Like there is just that, like, um, and I think actually nature have created in that way. It's of course possible to see sex is for reproduction, yet it's it is so, yeah, with insects, for example, fully, and other animals. But nature, I think, is not missing pieces. And I think with the evolution of man, it's also evolved the use of that energy in a very specific way. And that's actually part of the thing is to support our further development, like developmental stages, like evolution of consciousness. It's just to integrate the intensity of like the eros of life, how to say, just like the intensity uh, of the will of the one being that exists and gets to know itself through all of us. It's
Yeah,
possible to say it like this.
absolutely. Yeah, this is profound. It's making me I'm loving this conversation also because it's making me almost relive, revisit the session that we've had together and how moving from these different states of consciousness of this victim identity and these frequency of like hatred, putting myself separate against a group of people, like deciding that men are, and it's like
Yeah,
me versus them,
generalization.
generalization, and then moving through the emotional charge, moving through different ways of orgasms where my consciousness expands, and then seeing things through very different perspectives and bringing a lot of peace. There's just such a huge difference in how I move through the world since this session, and how I see these pieces that are still here and that are which I have much more distance with. And so
Mhm.
just imagining if we all did this work of being really clear on who we're judging, who we're feeling separated from, who we're having maybe even intense hatred towards, and then doing this work of liberating certain things in our body with the support of our consciousness, with the support of clear intention, this maturity that you were mentioning, this maturity of being willing to be wrong, be willing to forgive, and and then seeing the world and moving through the world through that place, from that place.
Yeah, I think even from age 5 is possible already to educate if the other kid, I don't know, doing something and I want different, then an adult can encourage me. Can I actually know it within myself, the other perspective that the other kid is experiencing? Can I know exactly how it feels so I can actually empathize with the other kid and have understanding? And then I will not need anymore to be so defensive and stuck in my separated position, but I can become wiser, expand my perception and how basically to harmonize, but that's already teaching the habit of integration rather than solidification of the individual.
Yeah, this is what I was gonna say. This I love that you're using this word solidification. It feels like when we're younger, we're much more malleable and so open to this possibility of integration. And then the more I think it's from, I studied transactional analysis, and there they say that basically at age 5, you made just a bunch of decisions on life, on who I am and what the world is about, and they're just gonna solidify and calcify with time.
Yes.
And so, working with pleasure and orgasm is also a way to just like break all of that apart, to come back to that level of malleability, that flexibility, to be able to, yeah, see the world in different ways, and just not this
Yeah.
narrow way.
And more creative,
More
which I
creative.
think is also it's part of the natural in the novelty is natural part of the vector of life, I think. Even in the genetic material, it's just more variations of information expression.
Yeah,
So it
innovation on it.
supports, yeah, yeah, to
Mhm.
support the evolutionary process, even biologically, but also, yeah, as a consciousness, as a person. Yeah, it's we have the habit to to evolve a thick self-identity like an ego. And these days, even like I think the politics very much use it and make it even way more with all the group-based identity that
Yeah.
like to bring it to places that have never been to such degrees. So it's a whole another category of solidification of the identity. Um, but it is just education and it can, I think, yeah, I think is part of the responsibility as well is to not only teach adults but also kids, but also adults because adults teach kids, and of course, first of all, ourselves because we always have more shadow aspects,
Mhm.
and to just get the habit of integrating. And as more we live with a certain shadow piece, it will be less nice feeling, how to say, to reveal it. But eventually it liberates.
Thank you so much for this conversation. It got me really excited because it's, yeah, supporting me also to kind of place. I'm just fascinated by pleasure and this embodied liberation uh process. And sometimes it gets quite overwhelming to think about the bigger context of why, it can be very easy to go really narrow into the technicalities of working with body and pleasure, and to have this kind of wider context of why are we even doing this? What is at stake? What is the bigger um, vision, and the yeah, just the context on a collective level of this work, and on a philosophical level is very refreshing.
Yeah, yeah. I seen the last decade, about a decade ago, started a big wave of awakening of people into this type of work. Um, you also in this work, like you actively support people either through workshops or sessions to become more aware of their nature, how to say, which includes pleasure, and actually pleasure have a very significant function, how to say, and how to bring that to a wholer self-knowing, um, which generally I mean the aspect that both integrate the sexuality, like the lower part, and also the spirituality, the higher part, both polarities, and not choose either or. And so it's already a way that aims towards a wholer self-knowing. And about a decade ago, start can see that started a wave of like a frontier. It's still like pioneering. In the last 5 years, there was a big resistance to it with a lot with victim mentality encouragement. And but that also helps to refine the precision of what is it actually that work and to because it's powerful and to use the power wisely is important. Um, but because I started more years before, I've seen it in the days that like almost nobody knew the word tantra in the West. Like it was unheard, that word. And and it was very different. It was very it needed to be brought through directly the field of sexuality because there was no association to connect it with. Even yoga was a hippie weird thing back then. It was not like in a gym. There was maybe a studio, and people told about him. Yeah, he went to India and smoked too much, so he do yoga. Like, uh, and and now it's just normal. Everyone do that. It's like a lifestyle thing, and that is encouraged and a lot of benefits. I can see the field of conscious sexuality, how to say, like that it gradually comes into the mainstream because naturally what life want to be vital and how much can we repress our nature and be ashamed? Like there is no other crazy animal that have shame of its own nudity. It's like there is something absurd in it. Even in cinemas, it's more easy to show many people murdered and blood and pieces of bodies, but a nipple, it's like whoa, it's terrible. It can kill. It's worse than all the death.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. There's still so much work to do, and I love that
yeah,
you bring that. The fact that it's becoming more and more mainstream is just this proof that like life has its own tendencies, part of this wave, right? Of this just wants to expand into something bigger than the limitation of our shame and our current worldview. Mm.
yeah. And what I say with all that is that I'm really happy that you do the work you do, and
Mm.
I really think that it's needed, and I think that our culture it's critical almost that people come into this field and that it would be more normalized. And yes, it brings all that craziness of how to say hyper trauma informed view.
Okay.
I think yeah, it goes to that level sometimes. But it brings people to be more trauma informed. And trauma is a bit different than other psychological disturbances, or post-trauma, more to say, is a bit different. because there is a split in the person, uh, and how to connect these split parts. This is the integration. This is literally the process of integration, and it necessitates the ability to perceive a fourth person perspective, like to expand the cognitive complexity, like to use also the archetypal Rama in order to know thyself.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I'm also extremely grateful for having experienced it for firsthand that you do this work in the world, especially working with women, especially as a man, but generally as a person who's been in this field for over 25 years and who's also has this distance of seeing the evolution of what, yeah, how it's transforming and how much this, I imagine this work has worked you as well. It's very precious to have someone who's in this field with that much experience and wisdom. And I wished, and I've told you this before, I wish for every human and particularly every woman who is ready to receive it to be able to work with you.
Thank you. Yes, only those who are ready.
Only this already. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Kadesh, for this beautiful conversation.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah.
too.
Mhm.